gypsum coving installation. So here we got now 5-inch 127mm coving. It's a gypsum based, paper faced. That's the profile. It's like a plasterboard. First thing I do, you check the profile. It says 83 by 83mm. I cut block of wood, like a little button, and go around the perimeter of the room and mark up pencil line on that 83mm. So do that on every half a meter, couple foot apart, all the way around. You can see all them little pencil lines and that is to actually help me align coving better, because when you put coving on, you have no actual control of the angle, and the danger of that is that you can, as you're fitting the coving around the room, you can start creeping downwards. So when you come back to the same corner where you started, they don't match, they don't fit. So if you have that 83mm mark, you can see it there on the bottom and on the top. You have a reference all the way around the room when you're installing coving, a quick reference to keep it aligned, so it stays basically nicely square with a corner. And when you're measuring from corner of the room to other corner of the room, don't measure it tight. Always deduct something like 5 or 10mm off, because fitting coving, you can't do it too tight. Corners will get misaligned. So always leave about 5 to 10mm shy when you're cutting coving. When cutting ends on the coving, you can't just use a square and cut it on 45 on the face like that, because as you can see, that is not 45, that's a compound cut. Also you can see it here, it's a compound cut. This is just the off cut. This would represent internal corner, as that, same as that. And this cut here would represent external corner, which is opposite part of the internal when you cut it. So you have to use a saw guide, little mitre. They're very handy, they're very small. This is one from Wicks. This one sits inside of the coving. You got also the type of them that they sort of sit like outside of it, sort of arch out. They're almost like a triangle. I've got one of them, but I can't find it at the moment. It's somewhere in the van. And you have to use them, and then you just use a saw, and following the angle of that mitre, you make that compound cut. So mitering, coving or cornicing, it's not just a mitre, it's a compound, because you have to do mitre and bevel in the same time. And if you have any kind of these little guides, then your job is going to be 10 times easier. It can be done without them. You'll have to make a jig, but don't just put the coving down flat, mark up 45 and cut it, because that will not work. It has to be compound cut. Another little useful tip is, when you do a room, pre-cut all your lengths ready, and then you can start with sticking them on. So as I'm measuring, I'm just writing up there in the corner for each length, so I got quick reference when I'm cutting them, and then when I'm assembling or sticking coving, I got quick reference which piece goes where. And there you go, they're my markings on each side. I've got 89, 90 inches, 32 and 3/4, 94 3/8 and 44 and 1/8. I do apologize if you don't work in a imperial, but I do for these things. Now here in this corner, as you can see, this is a corner cut of the wall. It's 45 degrees, so I'll have to do miter cut there. That is not going to be joining on a 90, it's going to be joining on 45, which need to be bisected, and I'll show you how to make a simple yet effective guide to do them kind of compound cuts. So let's do with a normal cuts that for the coving that goes around the 90-degree corner. So I'm going to cut one internal corner on the right hand side. So with a saw, I'm going to follow the guide. One side, and then measuring from the furthest point, I transfer my mark, got 89 inches. Now, just a simple important thing here is that's our mark, 89 inches. That back surface is what goes against the wall. So our cut is supposed to start there, on the bottom corner. So when you're putting this little miter tool, don't line it up with the edge on the top there. You have to project it 45 degrees back down that way. I hope camera can catch that. It has to be like that. Not there, it needs to be back there. So that line meets up the bottom point. Okay? And then again. We have our 89 inches length ready. So I'm going to pre-cut others. You can also make a relatively cheap and easy, simple stand or holder for coving, so you can cut various different angles. So it all depends how you're looking at the coving. So coving, this piece effectively has a top and the bottom side. So this is the ceiling side, this is the wall side. That's how it goes on. And this will be internal corner that will have another piece coming out that way. Now, if you're making jigs to cut, you have to hold your cove that way, so you can do a straight cut down. So you don't have to fiddle with a compound cut, you can just do a miter then. So you have to make a jig that will either hold coving in exact position as it's going to be up against the ceiling with a wall side and a ceiling side. Then you can do your miter cut on any angle you need, or you reverse it and put a ceiling side down and a wall side up. By doing that, you actually have a better hold on the cove itself whilst you're cutting, and then you can do your miter cut. Simple way to do that is just with few bits of wood. I got some offcuts here, and just fix them on the back. A bit of floorboard as well. Handful of screws. And as I mentioned, our coving has a projection of 83 millimeters. So I need to mark that up on the bottom of the board. And then I'm going to have another piece there of wood on that marking. It doesn't have to be that large, I'll use something smaller. Like that. Right. More screws. Now we have a stand that will hold our piece in a perfect alignment as it will go on the ceiling. Just keep in mind, this is your wall side and this is your ceiling side. So coving is upside down. Now I need to do a few markings down here. So I'm gonna do 22 and a half. The next thing, if plaster or wall ceiling are very dry when you're sticking coving on, it's advisable just to quickly run some water around the perimeter. Just quickly, doesn't have to be nothing pretty, nothing thorough, just to dampen it up a little bit. To adhere coving to the wall, use either coving adhesive or you can use this is universal bonding compound or drywall adhesive, because that Cove is exactly the same like a plasterboard. So anything that will stick plasterboard to the wall, you can use to stick coving to the wall. Just mix it up with a puddle in the water and then you can proceed with sticking. And consistency has to be like that. So it'll be sticky and pliable. Let's go. Right, here we got one of the shorter pieces. Let me just put flush on. And with gauging trowel. I prefer gauging trowel than any other. Just grab decent amount of adhesive and just run it along the edge. That's all you need. And do the same on the other side. And load up the mitre. Oops. That's going to interlock with coving that is already up there. Right, so that's that. Now I'm going to try to turn camera over without making too much mess. Right, I hope that can be seen well. Now, got our little markings. It's going to help us line it up, load up the corner. There you go. Just push it in. And then comes the fun part. Filling knife. Pick up all the excess. The gauging trowel ready. Put the excess on the gauging trowel. And then you can use same compound, fill the corners. Fill the ends. Then the sponge, dump or wet sponge, and smooth up all that adhesive and wash out excess. Top up the bottom edge a little bit. There you go. And just repeat the same thing all the way around the room. And there you go. The room is done. It's washed up, filled, cleaned. Here are 45 angles. And this section here I screwed on or mechanically fixed yesterday before plastering, because you can't stick it to wet plaster. I had to do it today, so if I plastered yesterday I wouldn't be able to stick that section there, so I screwed it on yesterday before plastering, and then plastered into it. And there you go. Whole room done. Now I just need to carry on to other rooms. And also another little tip, please, when you have a linear joint on a length, on a straight length, make a mitre compound joint. Don't just do butt straight cut. Mitre compound joint, load up with adhesive, and then you can actually squish it up nicely. And there is our joint. Once it dries out and gets painted, you're not gonna even see it. Now, another very important thing is when you're cleaning up excess of this adhesive, please clean all of it. It's very hard to sand down. If you got any blemish left over afterwards or imperfection, always top up with some fine filler and sand it down. Don't use this adhesive as a filler to be sanded down, because it's very hard to sand down. You will curse the day you done this. So any excess, smooth it up as best as you can. You better have gap or hole rather than proud material. It is hard to sand down. Another little scenario, when you have internal corner on one end and then you're coming something like this where the window is very high, what you have to do, you have to stop and return before that corner. So it will have to stop here. You measure from the internal corner, that will be your internal cut, furthest point, up to this corner here, and that will be your furthest external corner cut with a compound mitre going back into itself, and will make a return back into the wall there. So measuring from internal corner, most furthest point on internal and the most furthest point on external compound cut on this side. And then once you fix that section, it's going to look something like this. Just make sure that that point is in line with that there. Then you search your pile of offcuts, or actually cut another piece, which is another external corner to wrap up around it, and that little piece goes on like this, and that's how you make a return. So I'm just going to load it up with adhesive and stick it on, and there you go. It's one return, so I'll have to do another return here and two more around this door here.